red ferment area. Might be hard to hear, so I might have to narrate this separately. But basically all of these tanks here, all of these RF20s and everything else, these are all our red ferments. So that 4-inch pipe that was being taken out of the crush deck will go into the top of these tanks, and then these tanks will get filled up. All the fermentations will happen in these tanks. Primarily they're all pump overs, or we'll use pulse air to sort of break up the cap when they're fermenting. And then once they're finished fermenting, we have two separate presses, two basket presses for pressing the red wines. So you get these large baskets, and these will just get filled up with grapes and with juice, and then they'll go into the big basket presses, and essentially they'll just get squashed, and all the juice will get pushed out from inside of them. But in the meantime, before that happens, they have to be fermented, and we'll do a series of pump overs. So the way the pump overs work is we'll hook onto the bottom valve of the tank, and then hook that up to a pump, and through a series of hoses we'll get into the top of the tank. So I think all these are buttoned up. Yeah, so this hose will be coming from the bottom valve, coming from the pump, and it'll get hooked onto this. You can see it's got a little bit of a propeller here on the bottom, and that's what sprays the juice around, and this will sit in the top of the tank, and it'll spray the juice around all over the cap. So that's how they keep the cap nice and moist and keep the skins in contact with the juice. So this is sort of the smaller tanks. This is where a lot of the premium lots go in, is into these little tiny 5,000 liter tanks. And some of the bigger stuff goes in over here. So you can see there's a couple of different pumps. One of these is used for each side of tanks. So there's that blue pump down there. It's used for all of these tanks. There's a little air pump here, which is used for all of these tanks. And then there's another little pump just around the way over there, used for all of these tanks. All the pumps have different names. Some of them are creative, some of them aren't. There's, for instance, the Rattle and Hum is the name of the tank. And then some of them are just called, you know, the Ragazzini, or the Henry is another one. But yeah, so this is sort of the top of the crush deck, or sorry, the top of the ferment cellar. So when we're doing the pump overs, again, there'll be a line at the bottom of the tank, comes up to the top, comes up over to this line, and then sits in the top of the tank just like this, and pumps over the wine. Now up here on this deck as well, there is a pneumatic punch down tool. So essentially it's a big plunger for punching down the red ferments, and it sits on a crane, and you basically just move it back and forth between the different tanks. Last thing up here, kind of some safety harnesses and things up here as well, but this is sort of where all the magic happens. This is the board that shows us what needs to happen with the various tanks that are still going. So at the height of harvest, this board was essentially full. You know, so it'll say what the tank is, when it was when it came in, when it was inoculated, pump over, and any other sort of additions or anything that need to happen. Another thing up here, every morning we do ferment rounds. So we take samples of each of the wines and check the temperatures and make sure everything was running smoothly. Just sort of take the temperatures. We have these 3-meter long temperature probes, which are these guys right here. You can kind of see it. And then to take the actual samples, we used a 3-meter long piece of PVC pipe that had a little detachable bit on the end there. So that's how we pulled the samples out of all of the bats. Right. Now, after everything ferments and gets pressed, then it goes down into the barrel hall. So that's where we'll go next.